Peace and love, everybody. It's your brother, your brozo here. And I'm going to say kind of this is like backed by popular demand. After the brother came on the Reset, a little documentary I did. A lot of folks were talking about, his clip, and they wanted more. So I'm giving y'all what y'all wanted. The brother here. As always, I like to let my guests introduce themselves, what they do, who they are, etc., etc. So please, brother.
All right, my name is Baba Óshun, Delé, or Zéklé Félé. I am a Oungan in the Haitian voodoo system. I am also a Baba Larisha and the Ishe tradition of the Yoruba people. I'm also a professional licensed architect. I have been practicing probably 13, 14 years, easily. I'm an ex-college professor. I taught some at Georgia Tech, masters from SCAD, just a regular Joe that's, trying to do my part in elevating my people.
Very, very good. Yes, and I've had the honor to knowing you for quite some time. We went to some of the definitely the same schools together. And also, I'm very thankful that you introduced me to some of more introduced me to Haitian voodoo specifically.
Sure.
And our mamba. So going forward, just kind of talk about that. Could you briefly talk about your experience getting to where you are now, as far as your elevation, your consciousness, the path you got to where you are now, and to tackle and kind of talk about some of your master teachers that got you to where you are today?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, what jumps to mind is Dr. Malakazi York. Dr. York actually got me out the streets. Prior to that, I was definitely heading down the wrong road. I had one foot in the street, one foot out. I've had several influences. My mother introduced me to an older gentleman when I was younger who would teach me about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Nation of Islam teachings, and, Hebrew Israelites, just different things like that. I caught on to Dr. York when I was maybe 17. Some of his teachings, I didn't really know who he was. But that, along with KRS-One and some of the conscious MCs like your Parish, your Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, all these things started me on my journey. But it's that street knowledge. 5% information, I was running to all that as a teen. And it gave me that equilibrium that I needed to not to do some of the things that I was about to do. So, that stirred me in the right direction. Even though these were, rap records and maybe I see a book or a pamphlet here and there, it was enough to look for something else. Like, all right, it started me on my journey to become a seeker. Yeah. Right? To look for information about my people. Then I was gifted the Melanin children once I got to college down in Texas A&M in Prairie View. I actually needed to go to Prairie View because that gave me the environment to sit still, because I didn't have that in Chicago, because I was in the thick of things and I was probably waist deep in the streets at the time. So that was my saving grace. In fact, that one book, The Melanin Children, because I this is a funny story, because I received a pamphlet of his, and he was talking this no one wins the race and racism and all this. What I took it at the time as some corny shit, and I was like, who is this dude? Get the fuck out of here with this. Fuck this nigga. That's literally how I looked at it, man. I was like, this is cornball. But I read that Melanin Children book, right? And it changed my life. It helped me make a decision because at the time, again, I had ties to the streets at the time, and it it helped me make the decision that, all right, I'm going to be about my people. I'm going to find out who I am, and you know what we're all about. What is Africa all about? Who are we as a people? And that one book, it literally made me give away all my work at the time. You know, the products I was going to distribute out on the streets, because I was one step away from, all right, I'm going to be a major drug dealer. That was literally what I was about to do, and that one book made me stop cold turkey right then and there. Right, literally. I read that book from cover to cover in one night. Literally.
I had plenty of nights like those too, bro.
Literally.
Yes, indeed.
So I have to give him his props. And when I was, just to put a time frame, I met him when I was 19. And it was a life-changing experience. And I've never seen the man. That was my first time on the land, and I met him directly within the first 5 minutes of me walking on that land. And, you know, I said, this is it. I heard one class, one speech. He gave me a sense of duty, or began to open my eyes to what black manhood means.
Yes, indeed.
And what it means to be a man, to be responsible for a wife, women, children, your community, and what our role actually is. Because I didn't have a clear picture up until then. And, you know, I couldn't give enough praise and accolades for what he's done to me, done for me personally.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so we got to get that. We got to get that one out of the way. Yeah, you got that documented for me, because you can't rewrite history.
Exactly.
This is my personal history. This is my personal story. You know, I hear, you know, all the allegations, all the other things. I'm not taking away from anybody's pain or what may have happened, may not have happened. I wasn't there. I don't know. But what I can speak to is what I saw in that land was amazing.
Indeed.
All right. It hasn't been done in thousands of years, 6,000 to be exact. A little over 6,000 years. We haven't actually had something that we actually created that wasn't under the influence of alien culture. Or I can't even call them cultures. Alien groups. You know. And what I mean by alien groups, I'm talking about the influence of other races of people. Dr. Ben was another great influence, because after Dr. York, I started checking out Dr. Ben, Dr. Ida Van Sertima, Dr. John Henry Clark was probably my number 2 guy. I love that old man to death. I can't give him enough praise and accolades. Dr. Amos Wilson, Carter G. Wilson, Professor James Smalls. I could go down the list, and I could keep going. All these men, you know, growing up, Brother Malcolm, obviously. You know, if I mention Elijah Muhammad, I got to mention Brother Malcolm. Farrakhan was an influence, you know, for a brief moment. I give him his props as well. I think I met him when I was probably 8 years old, 10 years old, something like that. Growing up in Chicago, So I had a Noble Drew Ali.
Indeed.
You know, heavy influence. So those were my influencers.
Excellent. No, it's interesting you say that, because in my upcoming book, you know, I talk about a lot of those people you talked about as well, and just that there's a plethora of information that we need to get from all of these great teachers to really start to get us in the right mindset, you know? So, and talk about that now, okay? Because there's a whole bunch of different things that's floating around about culture, spirituality, religion. How does that all tie in to where we need to be as the Nubian men and women that we have on this planet now?
All right.
In this current day and time, you know,
well, I mean, if you're saying the best representation of the future is in the past, the African human invented culture. Thus, everything that was a fragment of culture, namely religion, came after the fact. It's a mere fragment in the periphery of something that we created. that was really misunderstood. These are mere fragments when you discuss religion of authentic culture, and culture can only be invented one time. And that's the point that I really want to drive home. Just like the automobile can only be invented once, the elevator can only be invented once. Culture was a byproduct of African spirituality, African the first African spiritual systems, which were located actually in Central South Africa, right at the beginning of the Nile, what we call the Happy Valley or the Happy River. That's where it all began. So culture started there. And what's central to culture is their study of the laws of nature. Really, and these laws bring about, change in nature, which is cycles. So their beginning was to start with communication with the forces of nature, and that's what it really means to be in tune with nature. You had traditions that have been there for tens of thousands of years, all coming from that same region. But because of the various migrations, they became different folks, different peoples, because as you know, Africa is such a vast and large continent. When ancient Kosh created the first highway civilization and gave birth to what we call Kemet, which was later renamed Tamare, meaning beloved land, once they retook it, when they were invaded by those around 1800 BC, about 1600 BC. Then it was invaded again, as you know, in 325 BC by the Greeks and Roman, by the Greeks. Alexander, his general betrayed him. The Ptolemies took over, and they they turned our beloved land Tamare into Egypt. It was renamed Egyptos, or which later became Egypt. So in order to have culture, you have to we started the original blueprint was we started with communication with the forces of nature, right? Because the forces of nature control the cycles of nature. Now these forces of nature later became, they received nicknames like Ogun, Óshun, or Rumila, or Batala, Asar, Horus, or Haru, Asut, Mut, Geb, Nut, Tefnut, Shu, etc., etc. Ra, Amun-Re, all these different names. Within our languages, we name these forces because we're able to communicate with these forces directly. So we gave them attributes which later became known as names. Because if you look at what each one of these names mean, it's really describing something, right? Ogun is the conscious force, the cosmic conscious force that rules over all metal, right? And he's in us, in our personality, represents war, manhood, etc., etc. So, Shango represents leadership, represents fire in nature. So to be in tune with the forces of nature, you actually have to communicate with these forces. Now, what does that mean to be in tune with these forces? These forces bring about changes in nature, and these changes are recurrent, so thus they are cycles. So as we talked about our last video, and the last time we got together and had a discussion, I was talking about the two major phenomena in nature being balance and change, right? Your major laws of nature are growth, which is basically change, right? You have vibration, you have rhythm, you have correspondence, you have causation or cause and effect, you have gender, you have what they like to call mentalism. I call it ether because ether is everything is composed of ether. The entire universe. Everything in it. This chair I'm sitting on, this table I'm pounding on right now, your hat that you're wearing on your head, the Atlanta Braves hat, this shirt, you know, these beads on my wrist. It's all composed of this substance that you know, scientists today are calling what's the nickname that they're giving it? Black matter.
Black matter. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was known as the chaotic waters of Noon in ancient Tamaray, right? So these 9 major laws or principles within nature are the means by which change occurs. You know, so change is the major point, because if something does not change, it is dead. So we're on this continuous, everlasting cycle of change, and we have facilitators, and these facilitators are all your divinities in your African traditions, by whichever name you want to call them. Palomayombe is you have Zarabanda, you have Setirayos, you have Mama Chola, you have all, you know. So in the Yoruba pantheon, you have Orumila, Obatala, Óshun, Shango, Ochosi, Ogun, Oya. You have Eshu. In the Haitian voodoo pantheon, you have the, you know, some of the same ones, plus they have an expanded host of others, like the Gades over the phenomena of the dead. You have Baron Zamdi, Baron Criminal, all these different divinities. But these divinities, the major point of this is they facilitate change. So to be in tune with them is to be in tune with the laws or the cycles of nature. If you're in tune with the cycles, you're automatically in tune with those 9 major laws that are there, right? So that's the major point of this. This is why we've had civilizations that can last 100,000 years, like in the case of Kosh, right? And they talked about coming from a civilization older than, which was Numeria, right? And who knows how long that lasted, right? That's why the Yoruba can have an 8,000-year-old empire. This is why, you know, Songhai can last 1,500 years. And our civilizations have had these, because everything in nature has a gestation period, a birth, it grows, it reaches its height, it declines. That's natural. That's what happens in nature. So when you look at our traditions, they're designed to have our people in tune with these changes. So we change with the change, so to speak. So that's how we're in tune with the laws of nature. I'll give you a small example. As a Baba Larisha, even in my own household, we practice what's called Oshe, right? So I'll use Óshun as an example. Óshun represents the sweet waters, or the rivers in nature. So this particular divinity, shows up in the human being that expresses itself as love. She's had Haru in ancient Tamaray, by the way. So she represents happiness, joy, love, art, music, dance, anything, all the finer things in life, you know, money, anything you could think of is good, but she also represents magic. She's a temperamental, she's a water spirit, so she's a very temperamental energy. The water can provide a cool drink, or it can wipe you off the shore. So, you know, so for example, Oshe is the means by which the Yoruba people are in tune with these various forces. So each of these forces has their day within our calendar. And I'm just talking about the weekly calendar. Her day is Friday. At least that's how it's practiced over here in the diaspora. In Yoruba land, they practice it a little bit differently. But, you know, we had to do what we had to do. We got over here. So, you know, they keep a 4-day calendar over there. Like, for example, Orumila, you know, every 4 days you go to Orumila if you have your hand of what's called your hand of Ifa. And you ask Orumila, you know, what can I expect this week? Do you see Ire? Ire means blessings for me this week. Or do you say Oshogbo, which is, you know, hardship, or Wahala, which is, you know, negativity. We make an offering to whichever divinity is, right? And we ask, is that offering enough to bring about the good condition? Because Orumila is responsible for destiny. And every one of these divinities aspire, as it relates to us, not only to make sure that we're in tune with them, and thus in tune with the greater spectrum of the changes being facilitated within nature. Because remember, these divinities are here to facilitate the cycles. Mm-hmm. So our relationship with them is about being in tune with, because when you become a priest, you become a part of that facilitating process. Because my job is to make sure those around me, we're in tune with whatever changes are occurring. You know, and that's, if you notice, we had that earthquake in Haitian voodoo, right? In Haiti, you know, the other day, on the anniversary of the Haitian Revolution, which is very ironic. And I you know, I'm not saying this to kick anybody while they're down, right? But had the greater majority of them been practicing their actual authentic tradition, Haitian voodoo, they would have been able to go to the Loa the same way I go to Óshun every Friday, or Orumila every 4 days, or I go to Shango every Thursday, I go to Oungan every Tuesday. I see Eshu every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And I asked them the same things about what's coming up my roads. This was a practice. And this also gives these divinities to have license in your life to guide you, because you can't see what's coming around the corner. They can, because they are the facilitators of these changes in nature. Well, we're about to have a tornado. We're about to have a monsoon. We're about to do this, because all these different phenomena in nature that occur that we consider volatile, they occur to bring about change on the planet, because anything that does not change dies. So to be in tune with that, if we were in tune with these forces, we would be in tune with these changes. Thus, we wouldn't suffer the effects.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Right. So we can't practice voodoo in our African traditions the way that Western religion practices, because they're not in tune with anything. These westernized religions were mere fragments in the periphery of elements that we already created, authentic African traditions. They took bits and pieces and created a doctrine for mind control, for the purpose of exploiting peoples of color. That's their whole purpose. So they're not in tune with anything. In fact, they design societies that, you know, now we have to collectively, we're facing what's called this 2030 challenge right now, right? Where architects, engineers, we have to come together globally to figure out how to generate, design buildings that are not polluting the atmosphere, because buildings account for damn near 50–60% of the pollution on the planet. Yeah, just to maintain how we cool a building, or thermally control it, heat it, cool it, etc., etc. So mold doesn't grow, so we could, you know, make the space habitable for human beings. We spend 90% of our time in buildings. So we use a lot of resources, not just in the harvesting aspect of it, of creating the materials to build the building with, but we also just the real resource waste is just in maintaining the building itself. So is that the sign of a people that's in tune? Mm-hmm. Not at all. Mm-hmm. Then why do you think we've had cultures that can last as long as it lasts without any problems? We would have subtle, you know, say if one empire declined or one civilization declined in Africa, it would be very gradual, mm-hmm. and subtle, mm-hmm. and a peaceful death, mm-hmm. and it would give life to something else, mm-hmm. and then it would go through the same gradual, you know, it would grow and it would gradually decline. Mm-hmm. And this would take place, you know, over thousands of years. Yeah. You know, in the case of the European, not to knock on them, 500 years is their benchmark, and they have a very volatile explosion, mm-hmm. in terms of their civilization. I judge culture by the civilization it produces. Exactly. And they haven't produced a civilization that has yet to last over 500 years without destroying itself. Mm-hmm. Rome was decimated, mm-hmm. and it was decimated from the inside. Mm-hmm. Greece was decimated by Rome, and they were some of the same people. A lot of the Romans were once Greeks. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Oh, you understand? That's the lack of being civilized. That's the lack of culture. Well, all right. Well. There's a major point that I'm trying to make. Mm-hmm. What is real culture? What is authentic culture? Yeah. All right. In order to have an authentic culture, you have to have a spiritual system, mm-hmm. that's interwoven into that culture. There's no such thing as living your life on this planet without spirituality. Mm-hmm. Well, so what is a cultural spiritual system? Well, we just covered that definition. What it meant to the Africans or our ancestors was it meant to be in tune with these facilitated forces, these cosmic forces of nature, but whatever names you want to call them, because I'm sure they existed long before the nicknames. Mm-hmm. So communication with these forces gave birth to our actual spiritual traditions. Before you have culture, you have to have a spiritual system. Spiritual system gives birth to culture because it covers your whole way of life. Culture is your, the nucleus of your culture is your spiritual system, how you eat, how you dialogue with one another, the structure of your family, how you guys interact with the environment. Culture controls everything. Mm-hmm. Culture is the guard of a mind. It's the collective mindset of a people. It's in everything we do, mm-hmm. from the arts, the foods, everything. But I can't call. Well, there was a time when a lot of the other groups of color, they had culture because they got it from us, because mm-hmm. we gave it to them. Yeah. That's a fact, mm-hmm. and I'll debate with anybody on that, mm-hmm. and you will lose badly. Yeah. Say that. Let me look in the camera and say that you will lose very badly. It's an African thing, yeah. Hands down. Yeah. But along comes this European, and they remove the spiritual system from culture. Mm-hmm. So is it culture still? Because from culture, it gives birth to civilization. Yeah. In order to maintain a civilization, you have to continue your culture, so that becomes tradition. Mm-hmm. That's how you create a society. So you have spiritual system gives birth to culture. You have a society first, then you have a civilization. That's the blueprint to live in collectively. Mm-hmm. And there's no other way. Mm-hmm. So if we're living a degenerate way of life, mm-hmm. no wonder they can't create anything without going to war, or creating a war machine to destroy everything to gather resources versus just sharing, which makes a lot more sense. There's plenty to go around. The universe is not. The universe is not. The universe is infinite. The resources in the universe are infinite. They recycle themselves. You just have to take your portion. You can't be greedy. Right? So your spirituality is supposed to cultivate your inner spirit, your lower division of your spirit, to be in tune with your higher self. Because there's only one absolute that's in existence, and that is the all. We're all a part of the all. That's it. And your higher self is your individual portion within the all, that ethereal substance that is the universe. So your cultivation system is supposed to guide you to transfer your conscious from the animal division of your spirit to the higher portion of your spirit, which is your soul, which is your individual portion of the divine. If it's not doing that, then what do you really have? And this resonates in your everyday life decisions.
That's true.
So if your spiritual system isn't guiding you toward that, then it's for nothing. If it doesn't deal with, because the universe is concerned with everything. If your consciousness, if you don't, as you get older, if you don't grow into being concerned for more than just yourself, then you've missed it. I don't care what you are. You could be a Oungan, a Mambo, a Tata, Babalawo, whatever title you've been awarded. If you don't have, if you don't go through that process, if it's just about you, then you've missed it, and you don't deserve the title, and you don't deserve to be a part of any of our traditions. In fact, our traditions are being corrupted with the degeneracy of this lack of culture. We're literally following a people that are genetically recessive to the point that there was autopsies, and just as I'm going to chime in my point with this. There were autopsies done in the Korean War. They brought back the soldiers, and they noticed that a lot of the African soldiers that were coming back, they had pineal glands that were active, and in our white counterparts, these pineal glands were calcified. You know, it was through that process of looking at that, they discovered that, all right, Africans, 90% of us, we have active pineal glands. Vast majority of us have active pineal glands via our melanin, right? In fact, the pineal gland produces the melanin. We have neuromelanin, and we have what's called EU melanin as a race of people. That's the scientific term for it. Every other race has what's called pheomelanin. And this is a result of the cycle of six ether or six ether forces hitting the planet over 18 million years ago. We come from, we as a race of people, we come from a much older cycle. The evidence of it is in the melanin, the type of melanin we have. It just doesn't grundulate our hair and turn it kingly, right, Dr. York? But the type of melanin we have comes from that original cycle, but it's also allows us to be conduits for these higher forces of nature, thus spirit possession is possible more readily in the African. I'm not saying it can't occur in others, but it really happens with us. Our women go into trance just like that. And this is why. So we have the biochemical mechanism by which to be in tune and hear these forces of nature. They can readily communicate with us because we're the first human being. We're the oldest, we're the first, and we will be the last. We're designed to go through all the cycles of nature. This is what I need Africans to hear. All right. So when you go to mix in with other groups, I know this is kind of taboo these days, You got to ask yourself, what are you actually doing? It has nothing to do with, I hate or love this person. I'm sure that person is wonderful and fantastic. They probably treat you better than some of the sisters, brothers. But think about nature's design, how we were designed.
What are the benefits?
What are the benefits? Yeah. What are the pros and cons? The greater spectrum. There's no substitution for our African women, brothers, even though they're crazy as cat shit these days.
The melanated avatar is the Rolls Royce of all avatars.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hint, hint. Okay.
Absolutely. But the point I was making, we're literally following a group of people who don't have the necessary as a group, the genetic hardware to be in tune with these forces. So that's suicide by itself. Because if they can't communicate it, how would they know something's coming up the road? They wouldn't be able to tell you that.
They build machines.
Yeah, they build artificial machines to kind of deal with nature, not be in tune with nature. And there's no beating nature.
Yeah, no.
You have to work with it. And you know, they, in a clumsy fashion, they figured that out finally. But you know, that kind of takes care of itself. What we have to do as African people is not about hitting back. It's not about getting hit anymore either.
For real.
All right, because if you run up in my house and you're a race soldier, guess what's going to happen? You will not be touching my women and my children.
I know that's right.
You harm my son, I'm going to kill you. Let me say that on camera. All right, that just is what it is. It's not about being somebody's punching bag, but we have to peacefully go about rebuilding, and we show people through our example. We gave birth to civilization on this planet. We've had the greatest civilizations on this planet. We've had the greatest societies on this planet, and we can show the world once more that we can provide the next humanity. Right, and I think that's our job.
Yes, I agree.
So, and it's not about hating other people, not at all.
Nope.
We're better than that.
That's it.
We are better than that.
What'd you say earlier? No one wins the war.
No one wins
racism. That's it.
And that's an absolutely true statement. You know, it's not about that. It is about doing for self and kind, though.
Indeed.
It is about love for self and kind.
Indeed.
We can't love others until we love ourselves first. And you know, we demand our flowers because we're the natural kings and queens of the universe.
That's it.
And that's all I have to say. Unless you have other questions, brother.
You know, it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of research on the Moors recently. You know, and.
You mean the Coptic Egyptians?
Yeah, exactly. That came on out
because they were the ones that actually stayed in Tamaray, right? And they held on to a lot of the technology as far as buildings and construction, and a lot of the stuff. They had the direct benefit from staying, but then there was a lot of brainwashing that came about. It's unfortunate that beautiful culture that they had, which was the Kilawati Sufi order, not Islam. Islam was pale Arab racist propaganda. Islam was a title that was added to their Sufism later. And so there's a big misconception.
Indeed.
So all that was Sufism, right? And not Islam, and it was renamed Islam because these were the folks from the outside looking in, renaming something they had nothing to do with.
They had to use it as a cloak as well because of the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they did have to cloak it because remember, they went through 500, 600, 700, 800 years of being oppressed. Yeah, exactly. So this wasn't the first time we were oppressed as a people. Exactly. A lot of the Yoruba, the Fon, the Aja, which is the parent people to the Fon, who went to West Africa, the Akan, Ebo, the Igbo. I'm sorry, I said Ebo. The Igbo people. They all came from Tamaray.
Indeed.
They migrated west, and they took aspects of our unaffected culture and recreated culture where they reset up shop at. When they resettled, they created beautiful African cultural expressions. You know, because Africa being so vast, that different pockets of our people left, migrate as the invasions occurred, and these savages ravished our beautiful, glorious civilization that was the first on the planet. When these savages came in, the spiritual orders, or brothers, sisterhoods, and brotherhoods, they left and said, and they began to set up shops in different parts of the continent.
So, and this is where I'm going with this, okay? Because a lot of people don't understand that over here in on this continent, stuff was already set up. Even some of the oldest buildings they already had was a mosque, modern day buildings, and temples on top of that. Could you please elaborate with in the detail how it was over here pre-colonialism, and how we had things set up, government set up, etc.
Well, Tamaray and Kosh, they colonized different parts of the globe, and we were the first. Us being the oldest people by millions of years. Yeah. We spread all over the globe during continental drift, and we didn't lose contact with our people. Our people were selling back and forth. Tamarayans or the people from Kemet, they sailed back and forth. The people of Kosh, they explored the planet. So they spread their civilization. These are colonies of our people in different parts of the globe. That's all it is.
Quite simple.
It's quite simple. Yeah. We've been here.
Yeah. For a long time.
For a very long time. Yeah. Like we talked on the last time that we got together. The figurines and of the Olmeca statues. You have murals. If you looked at my Instagram recently, you saw I posted a mural that were in caves, that was in a cave in Mexico, and these are the same scenes that you would see in ancient Tamaray. The scene of Asar and Anapu and Judgment. They had similar scenes. I mean, the artwork, it was damn near identical. Yeah. Right?
Same concept, different artists.
Yeah.
In different time, people.
Yeah. No, same people.
Yeah.
They were all related.
Yeah, I got you. Well,
okay. Same culture.
Same culture. That's what
same culture.
Yeah. I'm gonna. That's something that I think is very, very interesting coming into this day and time where people all, well, not us, others are so interested in all this American patriotism, etc., but people don't understand it's very difficult for people that know our history here to be attached to anything a part of that.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's pretty much a slap in the face, to be honest.
It is a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Because our people were erased from not only our land but our identity about our attachment to this land.
And that's a big American thing.
That's a major problem.
Yeah.
And they went out their way to cover up. Just the same way that they're trying to erase the identity of the Tamarayans being African. And even though Tamaray is in Africa, there's plenty of evidence. They have a French teams going over there now repainting walls.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That's a problem.
Yeah, big problem.
I'd like to ask my white folks who are, who claim to be conscious and unracist, why don't you tell your people to stop?
Yeah.
What they're doing? Why do you have to erase our history in order for us to get along?
A huge issue.
It's like you're trying to destroy our African mind.
Yeah, no, a huge thing, and I'll talk about it in my next bit. A huge thing that I deal with, that I just have to keep on talking about, is the brain. I mean, the whitewashing.
Yeah,
you know absolutely. What I'm saying, and what type of mindset would just everything
insecure mindset.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the deal: not only of us black folks, us Nubians, melanin people, we've been lied to. But white folks been lied to too about their whole existence.
Yes, they have.
About the whole existence, their history.
Yeah.
None of that's true.
Yeah.
All that stuff, a lot of those black Greek sculptures that they have. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's to transfer their stolen power.
Yeah.
You know, they can't tell their kids the truth.
Exactly.
I mean, how did they get it in the first place?
You know, and it's something else I'm gonna build on, and you know, while we kind of close, and we talk about this too, the effect that Hollywood had, because Hollywood's the megaphone of even though they be dropping jewels, but you got to know the jewels to get them.
Right.
But as far as historically, it's the biggest megaphone of misinformation.
It is absolutely the biggest megaphone of misinformation.
No,
if I'm, and this ties back to my original point about them not having the genetic hardware to be in tune with these forces. If I don't have access to these forces, I can't do. If I naturally didn't do a lot of the beautiful things that we did as a people. My only recourse is to steal. And if I can't match, think about this. They could, if we lived an authentic, full voodoo culture over here, they wouldn't be able to compete with that.
No.
They wouldn't be able to compete with that.
No.
We'd be on a whole nother level. In fact, most of the inventions invented in this country were done by Africans.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. Let's be clear on that.
True. You know, it's interesting. I've always.
So they have to. It has to be this propaganda thing where they whitewash everybody's minds.
Like I was about to say, Supreme Understanding wrote this book called "Black People Invented Everything."
Sure.
I mean,
true statement.
Yeah. You know, and I'm gonna keep on.
Props
talking
to Supreme
about
Understanding.
Yeah. Props to Supreme. I'm gonna keep on as long as I'm doing this stuff. I have to push that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That even going back to what you said earlier, things that have recently, they were already invented previously. It was just in a different. It was different more so on a connecting to nature as opposed to going against nature.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So man, my brother, again.
We had running water in Tamaray. We had lights. We had the first buildings. We had medicine. We had everything you could think of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
This stuff can only be invented once. And we are the authors of it all.
Exactly. Yeah. Besides decrepitness, and that's
they got the degeneracy thing.
Yeah, they got it on. They got it on lockdown.
They have it down pat.
The masters of the
I will part with saying this: African people, let's not pollute our traditions with their degeneracy. Mm-hmm. We've been taught to be degenerate and to hate ourselves for over 500 years, well over 500 years. And there was a point, and I hate to bring back up the Moors, and I'm not, because I have some Moorish ancestry. Mm-hmm. They were brainwashed themselves. I got to keep it a buck. You know, they did some things against our own kind that led to our enslavement in some cases.
In some cases, yep.
It's not all, not all. But this is what happens when someone else invades your culture.
Exactly.
And this is the danger that we're facing here in voodoo, Palomayombe, Ifa, or I shouldn't call it Ifa, I should call it Isheshe, because that's the name of the tradition. We have to be very careful, all right? Okay, you know, we can have guests if that's what you want to do. I opt not to do that, personally. I'm after knowing our history and what we've been through for the last 6,000 years. We need some cultural intimacy.
Yeah, I agree.
This is what we need, people.
That's how it was in the beginning.
That's how it was in the beginning. It's okay to help out with others, but we have to take care of ourselves right now. We don't need to be the sacrificial lambs anymore. And those of you who are still preaching that nonsense, you're just basically cowards. And if you don't get out the way, you will be removed. All right, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna put you know, all the information for people to, you know, reach and contact. You know what I'm saying?
I'm on YouTube. I believe it's Zéklé Félé, Bon Oungan, Baba Óshun Delé. I'm on YouTube. You can subscribe.
Yeah, please.
My
please
Instagram.
Like and subscribe this brother, because I know he's gonna be putting out more content in the future. You know.
Yeah, I plan to, you know, obviously start my lakou in Haitian voodoo. You know, obviously it's going to be coming from a conscious paradigm of perspective, because I'm one of the very few that actually knows real African history, that really actually cares about us as a people, and not just out here trying to make money
exactly,
and beat people over the head with prices and you know, treat it like a religion. It's not a religion. Voodoo is not a religion. It is a culture. It is a spiritual system that was our means, our vehicle through which we were in tune with the laws of nature via the forces of nature. The conscious forces of nature, whether we call them Ogu Dambala, Obatala, Óshun, etc. These are our ancient traditions and practices, but it's to bring about the good condition on this planet.
Yeah, indeed.
We have ways of life that were peaceful. Let's get back to that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Right. We didn't have death-dealing ways of lives. We had we knew what it meant to build families. Man, woman, children.
We have to be the examples.
We have to be the examples.
Yeah, exactly. My brother, y'all heard it here. You know, your brozo. You know, like always, if you like this, please share, subscribe, and like, and also follow the good brother here. Thank you again, my brother, and you know, we want to be hearing from you soon. Okay, I'm hoping you can come back and we can do this again.
All the time.
Okay,
Hey, man, we family, bro.
Yes, indeed.
Let's
All right,
get
brother.
it.